Well, they are called goats, and they are an exclusive bunch over at the West Point Military Academy, if not the highest ranking one. Ben Fox Rubin is right here beside me. He's been reporting on this. Now, I live across the river from the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, so the long gray line, I see it all the time. Tell us who the goats are.
So the goats are it's part of a long-standing tradition at the Academy, which is more than 200 years old. For the goats, it is the last ranking cadet to make it through to graduation. And what happens with the tradition, the goat receives what's considered the goat fund, which is about $1 from every other graduating cadet, which amounts to about $1,000. And they also generally get the biggest applause at the graduation ceremony. So this is a great way to kind of show the fun side of the Academy, and also kind of as a fare thee well for even the last ranking cadet could go on to do great things, and that's kind of what it recognizes.
Which many of them have, and we'll talk about a few of those in a minute, but it's interesting, to put in perspective for people who may not be familiar with West Point. I mean, it is tough to be there. It's tough to get in, tough to be there. Even ranking last in your class, you have to have something in you to be able to have at least withstood the whole time there, the 4 years there.
Yeah, and that's a big part of why I wanted to write the story. I kind of feel like in my heart, I've always been a goat, and so this was kind of a thing for me to say. In our culture, in our society, we recognize number one perhaps far too often, and this was just one small way that I kind of felt it was important to recognize the last place guy, especially at a place as elite as West Point, because it is true that a lot of people don't even make it through the Academy,
right.
And finding your way to being last is oftentimes considered pretty darn good.
And some of these goats have gone on to great things. Name some of the more famous ones.
So probably the most famous goat in West Point history is George Custer, who was a Union Army officer. And he's known for his last stand at Little Bighorn.
Right.
And he's basically an American legend. Another one is George Pickett, who was on the Confederate side. There's actually a medal of, I found this out as I was filing the story, or I realized that I probably should have included this. There's a Medal of Honor winner from the late 1800s that's a goat. And I also found a really fantastic guy. One of the living goats is a guy named Phil Fant, who is an FBI supervisory agent. He worked in counterintelligence and after the 9/11 attacks, and has continued doing great work for the FBI, and
amazing.
Ended up being last ranking in his class, and
yep.
Ever the goat, didn't let it bother him at all, and
went on to big things.
Yeah,
I mean, and
exactly.
you know what? And truthfully, who's ever even asked you for your grades since you left school? I mean, nobody has really since then. But here's to the goats. Those of us who may have been ranking low down. It shows you can go forward and do something big. All right, more on the front page of the paper today. Thanks for being with us.